I really appreciate you taking the time, though. It's really
Of course.
awesome.
No, this will be fun.
I promise. And you know what? If it isn't, we'll never do it again ever.
Okay.
No, I'm excited to talk to you for a bunch of reasons. There are so many things that I have in common with everyone else almost that I'm talking to on the show. Mainly, I know them on a personal
Right.
level, and they're all in the same drama class, which I was in drama school with them, all that stuff. But you don't check almost any of those boxes. You and I don't know each
Right.
other almost
I
at all.
know. Yeah, very
Um,
little.
what class were you in? Remind me, were you in
I was in
2015 with them?
2016. 2016, so
2016.
one below.
Okay, gotcha. So,
Yeah,
were you involved at all in the first production of this?
I was. Yeah, I was the original stage manager on this.
Oh, okay.
So,
So you're one of the crossovers as well.
OG.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a better way to put it. I should have said the thing you said. See, you're great at this.
Well, thanks.
No, it's awesome. You're also one of the few ladies involved in the production. It's
Right.
a very male centric show, both in the
Totally.
content and just the overall crew. So,
Yeah.
what has it been like for you bringing it back, doing it
I mean,
again?
it's really different. I think like this is a story that's something that meant a lot to us in that time, and then now with the climate and like social just issues now, it means so much different. And like when you're an adult, I feel like there's things in this play that don't hit you the same way as they do now. So
Right.
it's like an experiment. It's really interesting and
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things, right? Like that the actors are bringing so much more of their adult experience and
yeah.
personality to the roles. But as someone who's not, on the stage in front of everybody, like,
Right.
what do you bring into the show differently in 5 years of experience
Yeah,
and
just like the experience level is different, so I kind of can, I don't know, we have an old dress rehearsal, and I have the whole filmed version of it from our original production.
oh my God, that's
And
amazing.
just like listening to me at the very end, like talking about like lines and stuff, it's like, wow, I'm a way different of a person than I was like 5 years ago.
What's different?
Um, I'm calmer, I think. I'm less really stressed and like, yeah, I think I've calmed down and I just think that like professionally everybody has grown. And so we're doing this scene with like tracking rocks back and forth. And I don't know if you've heard about that, but I
I,
remember
I
it
saw the
being,
2015 production actually.
yeah, I remember it being like the hardest thing to do in the world. And that was because we were all doing it at like 11 o'clock at night. But like
Hmm.
now that we're all professionals, it took probably a quarter of the time. And that's good because we only have a quarter of the time. Our rehearsal process on this is so short.
So this is a
Um,
question that I have for you. I asked somebody else, and I don't know if they were able to really quantify it. Maybe you know this. So as we've explained a little bit in these interviews already, right? The previous rehearsal process was you have a full day of school, and then you have rehearsals, and then after
right,
all that shit is over at 11 o'clock
right.
at night, let's work
Yeah.
on Bent, right?
Yeah. And now we're doing full days.
Right, but before you had much shorter rehearsal times, even though you had
Right.
more of them over more days, and now it's
Right.
compressed, but you're getting longer rehearsal
Days.
time during the day. So, were you actually getting more time before? Are you getting more
You
time
know what?
now?
I
How
don't
did the
know.
hours
Now
actually
that
work
you
out?
say that, I would actually think you're right. It's probably a little bit about the same. We were probably doing like, yeah, 2 hour rehearsals over a longer period of time. We probably have more rehearsal time now, but I would say it's so much more useful and so much because we're more professional and we also have like experience, but also because like our brains are better at 10 o'clock in the morning than they are at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Um, it still hits when you do four hours of rock figuring out blocking, you still feel like mush, but we're getting there. It's
Yeah,
less mushy than it
100%.
was before.
That's good. And you also do have the just general experience of doing this play already, right? So you know
Yeah,
some of the problems that are inherent in the script. I say that as
right,
someone who loves and respects the play, but as a director, I know every fucking script has problems that you're like, oh, how are we going to
right.
put this on a fucking stage?
And we've been coming at them all with different eyes, fresh eyes. It was so long ago that like yesterday we were doing something. We were like, I remember this moment being like this. And I was like, well, let's look at the footage. And it wasn't anything that we remembered. And so we had already solved the problem before we looked at the footage. And we're like, we want to do it this way anyway. But let's just double check. And we were doing it the way we wanted to be doing it and the way we remembered it, but not the way it was done. So I think we're just taking new thought processes to the play and totally like we're not doing the same play.
Do you have anything that when you were on your particular side of it, managing it, that you did last time that you're like, man, if we ever did this again, I would do X, Y, Z differently. And now it's like, oh shit, right, I remember. Now I'm going to get a chance to do those things. Or is it more like, Oh, right. I hadn't thought about doing that again. And now that we are, I think we have all these ideas, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, I just think that we took a more Americanized version of the script than the British version. And that was the lingo is a little bit different and it's better in this one. But also just like doing full, like not full scenery, but better scenery than what we had in RJR, which is like a movie theater for people that don't know it.
Right. Yeah. We've talked
Small
about that a
movie
bit.
theater classroom. And so I feel like it being done in a real space is the first thing that I wanted to change. And like also just coming at it with different eyes. I think it's an adult play.
How much of the show do you have documented from 2015? Like you said, you had some rehearsal footage. You have
I
like,
have all of the fight footage and a stumble through, so it doesn't have the lighting or the sound.
right.
It just has the blocking and most of the transitions. So full, I have the full production.
How much did you go over that before you went into this new one?
Nobody, we didn't really want to use it.
Right.
I watched it just so I would know, and I don't really like to read that much, so I wanted to watch it and follow the new script anyway.
Right.
So I watched it, but no, it wasn't. We've really stayed away from trying to recreate. We were just like revamping the script and the people and
Right.
the team.
What do you love about this play? I mean, it's amazing. We could go on and on, obviously, but I think that one of the things we talk about in theater all the time, because you are restaging a work that has already existed, you have to ask
Yeah,
yourself the
we
question of
love it.
why here, why now? So
Yeah.
you mentioned some of the political climate as
Right.
altered, and we
I'm
feel like
also a
maybe that's
Jewish, yeah, I'm a Jewish person, and I'm one of the only Jewish people in the cast.
right.
And so the Holocaust has always been a big part of my education, going to private Jewish school and things like that, and just being a Jew in general. And I think it's so important that a lot of Holocaust museums really don't touch on the homosexual experience or the queer experience.
Right.
Sometimes it's a plaque or a piece, and it's like it's yes, the majority of the people that were killed were Jews, but not enough of the majority to not touch on the other, I would say more than half,
Right.
the other types of people. And like, unfortunately, Holocaust museums really focus on that one sect of people. And as a Jewish person, I appreciate that, but I don't appreciate us not telling everyone's story.
Right.
And so I think this play does those two things really well. And it like touches on a historical moment that I hope more people are familiar with, but sometimes they're not. But then it also shows it from a perspective that we're not used to seeing. I also like everyone loves a good love story, and it's a good love story.
It really
Tragic
is.
at that, but it's good.
But even the mood shifts, right? Because we were talking before, it kind of starts like a rom-com.
Yeah, and the play has so much light in it too, and I think it is a good with this climate that we're in right now. It's good to remember like love is still a thing, and like people have humanity, and like if you shine light on that, it sometimes brings people out of like dark places. So I think that's what this play does.
For sure. One of the things I've talked to everybody about, and I would love to get your specific take on it as not being one of the faces of the show,
Right.
is when you're putting on a play in New York City, and
Yeah.
it's not on Broadway, and it's not off Broadway, and it's in Brooklyn.
It's in Brooklyn. Come see us.
Exactly, though. That is
Yeah.
exactly the point I'm getting to, which is, someone used to tell me that independent filmmaking is like venture capitalism. You're basically being like, I promise this thing will be worth it. Someone please give me money and then it'll be good.
Yeah.
But then once you get through with the process, you have this thing you can kind of carry around and be like, look what I made, look what I made, look what I made.
Right.
When you're doing a live theater production, it's ephemeral, right? It lasts how long it lasts. It's there for that
Right.
time and you catch it or you don't. What is it like being in New York in 2020, doing a show that is all the way in Brooklyn and making the case to not just people that you know, but the public of this is worth your time? Make
Yeah.
the opportunity for yourself to come see this play and to hear this story. What has that been like for you?
I think it's, yeah, you overuse the word important, but I think like when I explain to people that it's a story that's moving and it's something that's interesting that they won't get to see anywhere else. And I talk about the perspective thing that I like to talk about with like the Holocaust and the homosexual experience. And that's just not shown. I feel like it's a learning experience, but also it's just like a beautiful piece of theater. And yeah, I don't know. It's still hard to convince people, but I find a lot of light in the fact that I tell other people, like, people remember this show. And with our fundraising, we've seen a lot of people being like, wow, this was like one of the most memorable shows I saw at school. And I think like me just explaining that the play just does that on its own. And if you're a theater person or not a theater person and you want to hear a really good story, that usually sells itself. Or I don't know, the people who it doesn't sell to, they're not going to come to Brooklyn anyway. But I
See,
feel like,
that's brilliant. You're already hitting the nail on the head right there. And I tell people all the time, like, don't waste your time selling to people who don't want to buy from you. Your time will be
right.
better spent on trying to find new people who are already pretty close to wanting to do your thing anyway.
Yeah, no, and I've found a lot of people that are just like, whoa, I didn't even know homosexuals were like accosted in the Holocaust. And I'm like, that's horrible.
It is, but
like
it's
also,
yeah,
but
we're
it's
all
also
complicit in it in a way, right?
yeah,
Because like I think Will said he went to the Auschwitz museum,
right.
and he went through the whole thing. He said he purposefully read every single piece of text in the museum that he could find. And I think he said of the whole place there were
Like one
6
plaque.
mentions or something like that. Like just mentions. Not even like the whole
Right.
plaque was about them, but like they
Oh,
occasionally brought it up, and in that time it's really shifted his perspective. I think I was talking to somebody else who was saying that you had some family members that were in the Holocaust,
right.
and
Yeah.
you've recently kind of maybe engaged with them more and talked to them more about
Yeah,
that.
they're actually the last one just passed like a week ago.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear
Um,
that.
but her sister, we were trying to like get some of her stories. But yes, no, that's another reason why this play has been personally. I mentioned that like I'm a Jewish person and the Holocaust is important to me.
Hmm.
But yeah, my family is a big part of that. I kind of am doing this play for those two people, the second round, but also just because I like this play. But like when Emma came to me, I was like, oh, now I really have to continue to tell this story
Right.
just because it kind of came back up in my life. But and it's unfortunate that like most of the Holocaust survivors now are almost all gone. The generation
Yeah.
is almost all completed, and they were really young. I think they were like between 13 and 16. And they've lived not great, but they've lived a long life after that.
Right.
Um, so I feel like, yeah, we're about to lose some of the last survivors we have in the whole world. So
Right.
that's another reason why I think it's important to tell this story.
I think you're absolutely right. I think I was listening to I don't know, Barry Weiss maybe, who I sometimes do and don't agree with. I certainly shift, but her perspective always ends up kind of opening my mind in some way. And she was talking about how, she just recently wrote a whole book because the shooting that happened in Pennsylvania happened at the
Right.
same place where she had her bat mitzvah. And so
Uh,
she went back to that community after the event to kind of journalistically track
right.
what it's like when a community deals with something like that.
Mhm.
And she was mentioning that when she grew up, even though she dealt with anti-Semitism as a Jew where she was,
Right.
she also has always, maybe not always, I don't want to paraphrase her incorrectly, but she said especially more recently in the last few years, she's kind of really embraced this knowledge that the Jews that have grown up past that generation, that were there, that were alive, that were aware, have grown up in the safest time to be a Jew ever, and yet there is still all this anti-Semitism.
Yeah,
It's
anti-Semitism is on a huge, like, I wouldn't say rise, it's always been bad, but it's like on a
exactly
semi-rise over the last 5 years. It's like
right.
really out of nowhere, and I guess it isn't out of nowhere. That makes sense with like a generation that felt really safe.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, no, there's definitely trends and things, and anti-Semitism
And
is
I
on
don't,
the.
right, it's hard to know if it's more, but it's definitely
It's present.
louder.
It's definitely louder for sure. But I think that's with all cultures, and there's been more. I feel like we were really safe at like 5 or 6 years ago, and maybe that's just the school climate. But I think
Right.
right now it seems like even in the LGBTQ community, like it feels louder. Like
Right.
it's just like hate feels louder right now.
Yeah.
And so yeah, again, that's why this play is important to all kinds.
Yeah, I think anyone who's ever felt remotely marginalized for whatever reason is going to
Right.
take a lot of solace in this play and
And
recognize.
there's so much love in this play to have to like combat that, like fights it. I don't know. That's why you should see this play. There's so much love to combat all the hate in the world.
There's the ad right there. Cut,
I know.
clip. No,
Done.
Mariah, thank you so much for taking the time to trek out and talk to
It was
me.
great seeing you too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. As I tell you, I told everybody else, we'll have a full-on interview at some point that we don't have to do video if you're less comfortable, but you're
Yes,
very
I-
lovely and we could still do
Thank
it
you.
and it would be great. And we'll have
Awesome.
Kira produce it so you can have
Yay.
your whole support system.
Amazing.
No, but it was wonderful talking to you and I really appreciate you taking the time and thank you for working so hard on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.